KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I need your dollar, 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 that's what I need.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates small businesses, the enduring lifeblood of our community, with the launch of the KBLA SMB Marketplace. For the first time, small to medium-sized businesses will have an opportunity to promote their goods and services on KBLA and take advantage of our powerful reach and local marketing power. The SMB Marketplace is hosted exclusively on KBLA1580.com and is accessible from all our social media channels. Whether you're a small mom and pop restaurant, a car dealership, or a professional practitioner, we invite you to join in this new KBLA Talk 1580 initiative to promote your business. As a black-owned small business, you don't want to miss this unique opportunity to gain new customers on KBLA Talk 1580. For more information, contact us today at smb@kbla1580.com. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And if I share with you my story, would you share your dollar with me? Time to get it. Hey!
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Oh, wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, and I'm honored to have you with us in this hour. The world is changing even as we speak. Just announced, in case you missed it, that missiles have been launched from Iran to Israel. Israel is fighting on two fronts already, as you well know. They're fighting in Gaza. They are against Hamas. They are fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah. And now Iran has launched missiles at Israel. Just discussing in our last hour about any number of things that could happen, might happen, will happen, are happening between now and November 5th that may impact this election, even as we prepare tonight for the debate between the two vice president candidates, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, and Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. I can't imagine this debate tonight. The debate moderators, I'm sure, are scrambling right now to figure out how to get at these issues tonight. You can rest assured that this issue of Iran striking Israel or launching missiles at Israel will certainly come up in the debate tonight. The world is changing literally as we speak. As promised in this hour, two conversations on the B side as the fall travel season kicks off. Travel writer Shahnaz Habib on the power dynamics of tourism and how we can become joyous travelers in the midst of colonialism, capitalism, climate change, and apparently world disorder. We'll do that on the B side of this hour, but we commence this hour in a moment talking about language and how language matters. Debbie Nathan has an essay out entitled, "You Should Stop Calling Immigrants Migrants." You should stop calling immigrants migrants. Debbie argues that a subtle bipartisan shift in language, the language of immigration, has opened the door to vilification and dehumanization. Speaking of language, because I believe that words matter, I mentioned to you earlier at the top of the show that in our third hour today, we're going to do a tribute to President Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter today turns 100. Happy birthday to Jimmy Carter. So we're going to do a tribute to him. I've dug into the vault, and I'm going to bring you some of my best conversations with Jimmy Carter. I've been honored to talk to him many times over the course of my career. He's always been very kind to me. But I want to play a clip for you right now, given what's happening in the world even as we speak. This is me and Jimmy Carter back in 2006, 2007 on one of our conversations where we were talking about language, specifically the word apartheid. Jimmy Carter got into a whole lot of trouble using the word apartheid to describe what was happening then in Palestine. Here we are today with Israel fighting inside Palestine and fighting inside Gaza again, while they fight, as I said, Hezbollah in Lebanon, while Iran is now launching strikes against them. Before I get to Debbie Nathan and commence our conversation with her about the language of immigration, since we're, again, talking about Jimmy Carter in our third and final hour today, here's Jimmy Carter in dialogue with me about the word apartheid and all the trouble he got into back in 2006, 2007. Take a listen.
Or not, I want to ask you, President Carter, whether or not you think, respectfully, using a word like apartheid in the minds of some unfairly compares tragedies. Never mind you're trying to be provocative to jumpstart a conversation. Maybe you're comparing tragedies and folk don't take kindly to that.
If you go to Palestine and see what's being done to the Palestinians, their land completely taken away from them. All of their basic rights taken away from them. They have to have passes to go anywhere. I would say in many ways it's worse than the treatment of black people in South Africa under apartheid. It's worse.
But if I respectfully, sir, were a black South African, to have someone say to me that what they're doing is worse than what we went through, than the necklacing and all the years of apartheid, that's the point I'm getting at. That might not be taken so well by a black South African.
Well, I would regret that. Yeah. But I didn't say in all cases. I said in many ways it's worse.
It's worse.
Jimmy Carter stood firm in that conversation, and I was just pressing him. I didn't think he was wrong about it, but I pressed him, and he stood firm in his use of apartheid to describe what was happening to the people in Palestine then. As I mentioned, that was 2006, 2007. The calendar now reached 2024, and that issue is yet unabated. And at this hour, the news is that Iran has launched missiles against Israel. And so we are about to see what happens in the Middle East, but that clip from Jimmy Carter just was in the back of my head. I have my team go find it right quick to just give you a sense of how long we've been at this conversation about language. And so when we come forward, speaking of language, we'll get to Debbie Nathan and talk about the language in this particular moment with regard to immigration, another hot button issue that will likely come up tonight in the vice presidential debate. Her piece, once again, is called "You Should Stop Calling Immigrants Migrants." She argues that, again, a bipartisan, that's the Democrats and the Republicans, bipartisan shift in language about immigration has opened the door to vilification and dehumanization. We'll let Debbie make her case when we come forward on Tavis, Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Mark your calendar for October 2nd. It's California Clean Air Day. When you go Metro, you'll enjoy free rides and help clear the air. We can reduce pollution and create a healthier environment together. Let's all ride for a cleaner tomorrow. Start your journey at metro.net. With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
We're thrilled to announce that the Dear Future Wifey podcast is now available on the Urban One Podcast Network. This show, hosted by Latiris R. Whitfield, explores the journey of discovering and rediscovering love and relationships. With over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, Dear Future Wifey has become a prototype for discussions about love and relationships. Learn how to rediscover love, heal, and have faith in relationships. Go to urbanonepodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Debbie Nathan, journalist who has written a provocative piece called You Should Stop Calling Immigrants Migrants. Debbie Nathan, good to have you on this program. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm joining the club of people I know who've been interviewed by you, so thank you for inviting me.
No, you're kind, and I hope they enjoyed the experience. Hope you do as well. I'm certainly delighted to have you on the program. Let me just give you the time here you need to unpack this piece. For those who haven't had a chance to read it, we'll tell them later where they can find it and read it for themselves. But it certainly got my attention, and I couldn't wait to delve into it. So just make the case for me about why you are suggesting that we stop calling immigrants migrants. Debbie Nathan.
Yeah, well, all right. Let me just start by saying that for many, many years, I've lived on the U.S.-Mexico border. I don't right now, but I did for decades. And I've written about immigration for also many years, over 40 years. And I remember when I first started, you could still find in the archives of, the recent archives of the newspapers, you could find the word wetback to refer to immigrants. You could find later on in the 80s, it was illegal aliens. There was a big campaign to get rid of that. How could somebody be illegal, much less alien? They're not from outer space. And so, after a while, people started using immigrants. Sometimes they would say illegal immigrants, or they would just say undocumented immigrants, but it was still immigrants, which is definitely what my family was called in the late 19th, early 20th century. Everybody who came here was an immigrant. And then suddenly it seemed like in about 2014, people started talking about migrants. Politicians and the mainstream press were talking about all the migrants coming, from Latin America. And then along with the word migrant, there were also surges of migrants and waves of migrants, as though they were weather, like disaster weather, like in North Carolina. And I hadn't heard this word migrant, though, except to be used for like farm workers. Since the early 20th century, migrants, people who came to pick the crops and kind of like followed the crops seasonally were migrants. And sometimes they would go back to Mexico, but then they'd come back for the next season. So they were sort of circular. And in fact, I looked at the history of the word migrant, and I found that it was originally used starting in about the 17th century to refer to animals, like Canada geese, or, animals that go from one climate to another. during the seasons. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's no intentionality to it, it's just this instinctual behavior, and it doesn't involve settling. It's just constant moving. This country, we need immigrants right now. We have a falling birth rate. We have older and older people. We're an aging population, and we need immigrants, and they really want to live here. So to me, to call them to imply that they're just these creatures that are moving around aimlessly is very demeaning.
There are many in my audience who happen to be African American who understand this story, this narrative better than most. And the narrative I'm referencing is the narrative of language and how it changes over time. So that we have gone in my community from being colored to being Negro to being black to being Afro-American, African-American. And so we understand that language does, in fact, matter.
You're the experts. You are by far the expert on this subject.
Yeah,
yes.
well, we get it. We get the language change. And I'm thinking of Shakespeare, who asked that famous question, what's in a name? What's in a name? And it's a powerful question that Shakespeare poses, and we could unpack that for hours if we had the time. Before I get to this term migrant and what the language ought to be, I raised this notion of colored and Negro and black and Afro-American and African-American precisely because I want to get your take on what you make of, what your read is of the shift in the language of how we refer to these persons. Talking about your read of the actual shift in the language.
Well, I probably think that language is kind of on the top of things. There's things going on under the language that the language expresses, and of course it'll drive the stuff that's going on, the structural stuff underneath.
Sure.
But, I think there's been an incredible, very disturbing hardening of our ideas about who migrants are and why they're here and whether we want them or need them or not. And what's very disturbing is you see that first starting in the 90s under the Clinton administration, and you actually see a lot of very punitive laws being passed to get rid of migrants and to deport them. And at the same time, some of those laws are the same laws that are being used to criminalize young black people.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, like, I remember when somebody who'd been here for a long time from another country who had a DUI, let's say, or someone who had a low-level drug possession offense that they were caught on, or a very low-level distribution offense. Same thing was happening to young black men, but the young immigrant people who got involved with this were being deported. That was the first time that was happening under Clinton,
Mm-hmm.
and that was because the Republicans had pushed the Democrats, and the Democrats went along with it. Clinton's genius was to be a centrist and sort of push over to the right, and it's gotten, I think 9/11 really made things much worse. It just freaked people out, right? Mm-hmm. And this whole rhetoric started about the border being a place where terrorists could come in, and we had to really start controlling the border, and this huge militaristic infrastructure was put into place. And it's just growing and growing with more and more and more border agents and high technology. And so we get to the point now with the Democrats, I guess this is probably for the last, I don't know, actually, since the platform was pretty good on immigration in 2020, but mm-hmm. since then, mm-hmm. the Democrats have been very, very scared of the Republican position on immigration. And so a lot of this hardening of the language that we see now is coming out of this of Democratic fear.
Sure.
I believe it's fear. I think it's fear. I don't think they need to do this to win this election, but that's what they're doing.
I'm glad you went there because I wanted to ask you, so let me just continue along this line of thinking and questioning about the notion of bipartisanship on this issue. There's some things that we celebrate bipartisanship on, other things that we are chagrined by, and this is in the latter category, obviously, that this language has been embraced not just by the right but by the left. I wanted to ask you why you think the left, the Democrats, have embraced this language. You've already answered that question without my asking, but let me just probe this notion of fear. It seems to me that being afraid, that being scared, as a motivating force, as an animating force for driving public policy is not the frame you really want to be in. But I hear your point about their fear and about their being afraid, but they're being scared by the right. What are they? No naivete here, but what are the Democrats so scared of, so fearful of, that they would embrace this language themselves?
The politicians.
Mm-hmm.
They want to win elections, and they think that they have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one could say maybe if Kamala Harris wins the election, she'll get less Biden-esque because he also started turning really to the right. But maybe she'll be less so. Maybe she'll be more permissive. I mean, Biden had a lot of advisors when he first came in 2021. He had a lot of immigration rights people that were, telling him what should be done. And he did actually, I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but he did loosen up the border in ways that weren't dangerous to anyone, right? They just provided relief to people that Trump had tortured. Trump forced people to stay in Mexico who needed asylum, and I saw that. I lived down there. And it was traumatic to see these people living in hovels over in Mexico, starving. Their kids, I organized a mutual aid fund just to feed some kids who didn't have anything to eat. This is what our government was doing. He stopped that, and then the Republicans sued him. Biden, I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. They are being pushed by Republicans. The question is, can they push back, or do they really need to go along with this to win this election? Yeah. I don't know. I was in Pennsylvania knocking on doors just a couple weeks ago for Kamala, and mostly knocking on black people's doors. Nobody seemed to be too concerned about immigration, at least in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I was like, do we really need to do this terrible, hateful stuff in the rhetoric? Mm-hmm. Because it's not forward-facing. She is supposed to be forward-facing, but this is backward-looking.
I want to talk about forward-facing. I want to talk about what that pushback would or should look like. I want to talk about what the language ought to be before I do any of that, though. This bipartisan embrace of this language, specifically the language of migrant, you argue has opened the door, as I said earlier, to vilification and dehumanization. Words matter, language matters, but in what ways has, again, the bipartisan embrace of this language opened the door to vilification and dehumanization? Unpack that part for me.
Well, there's this, in her campaign in particular, which is kind of what we're focusing on, you look at her spots, her little 1-minute spots, and she says, I am going after the fentanyl and the traffickers, and I would have done this very strong Senate bill, but Trump wouldn't let, Trump told the Republicans not to pass it, this great bipartisan bill, right? Mm-hmm. And this bipartisan bill offers nothing to immigrants, no relief whatsoever. It's just more Border Patrol agents. It's going to be more people dying in the desert, and if this is what we were told when I was knocking on doors, that if people mention immigration, this is what you should say. She'll do it even better than the Republicans. I think that's dangerous. I think that's dangerous because you go forward with that. How do you go backwards on that kind of language? It's very difficult when it turns into national political language.
Let me probe right quick. You said you were knocking on doors. You were advised to give that as an answer by the Harris campaign?
Well, I wasn't working with the Democrats, and sure. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about the independent group that I have tremendous respect for, just great respect for. But I was so disturbed by this when I saw the talking point. I wrote to them today, and I said, I really need to talk to you about this. This is really bad because this is destructive in the immediate, I think, but certainly in the future, even if she wins, it's destructive.
Yeah. Well, I'm just struck by the fact that somebody is telling people knocking on doors, canvassing for Kamala Harris, if you get asked about immigration, tell them she's going to do it better than they did. That I agree with you. That's scary. Speaking of scary and fearful, but it's also bankrupt. It's a lot of things I can think of right about now, ideologically bankrupt. But it's beneath. It seems to me to be beneath Democrats. To be offering that as a response. They should do it better than they did.
Well, I'll tell you, Tavis. Yeah. Like, I find that, people who don't live near the border, unless they're like me and they obsess about this stuff and it's part of their job or whatever, people don't really know what the border is. They have no idea what the border is. No one goes there. It's funky. There's not a lot to do there unless you go camping, but it's not even good for that. It's not really a place where a lot of people go.
Well,
and they really don't know what it's like.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get that. Kamala was there the other day. What did you make of her visit there the other day?
Well, she stood by a wall, and she talked about how she was going to really secure things and border securitization and the usual shtick. I mean, it was the Republican shtick. She could have been Trump standing by the border.
Yeah. So here's my extra question then. What does, to use your phrase, pushback, what ought the pushback look like, and what ought the language be if not migrant?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because I didn't suggest an alternative in my piece, and I got so many emails from people saying, what should we say?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, we could go back to immigrant. We could just say immigrant. These are people that we need them. They need us. They would like to live here. And my family were called immigrants. You know that town, there's a second town where Trump said that the Haitians are causing chaos. It was a little town in Pennsylvania. My mom grew up there. My grandparents came from Eastern Europe. They didn't speak a word of English. They never really spoke English. My mom didn't speak English till she was 6 years old. This little town now has Haitians in it. And now the Haitians are ruining the town. That's another word I think particularly black people should be aware of, is that Haitian is becoming the new evil word for immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
That is it, man. It's the Haitians, So what do I think should be the word? I think probably the short answer is just immigrant.
Yeah.
But, of course, what is our attitude towards immigrants? At least it gives us room to think about how we need to think about it. I'm not saying people have to agree with me about, do we need immigrants? Do we not need immigrants? It's kind of like reparations. Like, we need huge commissions to take this very seriously, right?
Yeah.
This should be a very serious, rational question in our country.
Yeah. I will close.
It's not. It's just a question like they're pedophiles or something.
Yeah. Now I'll close on this note. I was in conversation with a friend of mine not long ago about an issue connected to this, and what we deduced in that conversation is that we are a nation of immigrants that don't really like immigrants. That's the bottom line. We are a nation of immigrants, but we really aren't that fond of immigrants. I will leave it there. Her piece is called "You Should Stop Calling Immigrants Migrants." The writer of that piece has been our guest. Her name is Debbie Nathan. Debbie, good to have you on. All the best to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Tavis. Take care.
My great honor to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Western North Carolina and East Tennessee are reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Officials in Tennessee say more than 100 people remain unaccounted for. Asheville, North Carolina is reporting at least 40 people were killed, with the overall toll now around 130 across the southeast. The vice presidential candidates will be in the spotlight tonight. There will be no audience when Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance take to the debate stage beginning at 9 p.m. That's Eastern Time. CBS News anchor Nora O'Donnell and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan will be the moderators. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is trying to get rid of some of the corruption charges he's facing. The African-American mayor's attorney filed a motion in court Monday looking to dismiss the count of bribery. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
A October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. One way to help protect yourself is updating your passwords. Using the same one for multiple accounts can make you vulnerable to cyber criminals. But for comprehensive identity theft protection, you need LifeLock. Start a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/cybersafety.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have a first-round bye in the National League playoffs. They're off until Saturday when they meet the winner of the Atlanta-San Diego Wild Card Series. At the Lakers Media Day Monday, LeBron and his son Bronny were introduced as the first father and son to play on the same team in NBA history. First training camp practice for the Lakers is Tuesday morning. The Clippers also had their Media Day Monday. Their first practice is Tuesday morning. Kawhi Leonard will not be there. He's been advised to sit out training camp to continue treatments on his sore right knee. The first month of the NFL regular season is in the books. Only 2 undefeated teams remain, Minnesota and Kansas City. Both are 4-0. Top 5 college football teams in this week's Associated Press poll. Alabama is now number 1, followed by Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Georgia. USC moved up 2 spots to 11th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what part politics play in our lives.
Questions about black voters, their disengagement, lack of information, and support or lack thereof for Democratic candidates have once again taken center stage as Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates compete for this critical voting bloc. Will black voters abandon Democrats in this election, move historic numbers of votes toward the Republican nominee, or will they continue a decades-long trend of overperforming for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot? The stakes have never been higher for Black America. Tune in to KBLA's new show, The Black Pack, hosted by veteran political strategist Adrian Shropshire, every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for a breakdown of the issues, rhetoric, polling, and more this election year. It's The Black Pack with Adrian Shropshire, Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
You've got a Pepto predicament, moviegoer.
Hey, I can hear your stomach grumbling.
Sorry, I ate that entire tub of popcorn with extra butter.
You overdid it, and now your movie has turned into a blockbuster bellyache. Undo it with Pepto.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto chewables provide fast 5-symptom relief, so you can focus on the action on the big screen instead of in your stomach. When you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Sweet chocolate reward. Sweet chocolate reward.
This is not just the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat at Walgreens.
This is the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat right after receiving all their vaccines in one trip. This is the sound of treating yourself, because you protected yourself.
Stop by or schedule both your flu and COVID-19 vaccines today and grab yourself a sweet treat while you're at it. Vaccine subject to availability. State, age, and health-related restrictions may apply.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
The White House has just announced they are about to undertake a briefing, have a briefing on this missile strike from Iran to Israel. As I mentioned already on today's program, we are heard all across the country in syndication, for which I am grateful. This story is developing by the minute, but as I sit right now in this seat, the White House is about to undertake a briefing on this launch of missiles from Iran to Israel. So the story, as we say, is developing, and sirens are sounding all across Israel. These missiles have already been launched, according to an Israel Defense Forces statement. So again, we will follow this as the story develops, and we'll learn more momentarily from the White House about this, again, missile strike from Iran into Israel. As I mentioned already, and you well know, Israel is fighting Hamas in Gaza, in Palestine. They are fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon, and now Iran has launched these missiles toward Israel. So we shall see what the White House tells us momentarily. But I am continuing with our program as scheduled. As you already know, in our third and final hour today, a tribute to Jimmy Carter. With all the drama circling us today, is a celebratory day in the Carter household. Former President Jimmy Carter long ago became the longest living president, but today he becomes the first president in American history to hit the centennial mark. And so we're still going to celebrate Jimmy Carter in our third and final hour today, which commences in about 20 minutes from now. But between now and then, a conversation with Shanaz Habib as the fall travel season kicks off. Travel writer Shanaz Habib breaks down the power dynamics of tourism and how we can become joyous travelers in the midst of colonialism, capitalism, climate change, and apparently world disorder. I suspect I should start this conversation, given the news of the hour, with Shanaz Habib asking whether or not travel has become more political than pleasurable these days, whether or not travel itself can be a form of resistance. Shanaz Habib, good to have you on the program. How are you today?
Thank you, Tavis. Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. As I often say, I'm delighted to be here and in dialogue with you. But to that question, given what's happening around us, even as we speak, we always have to center these conversations with what's happening in the world, and what's happening right now is not pleasurable. Absolutely. So I ask again, has travel for many people become more political? Is travel itself a sort of form of resistance?
Yes. I would say that travel has always been political, and I think with the current geopolitics and, of course, the politics of climate change, the climate emergency we are living through, more and more people are just becoming aware of the fact that travel is political and has always been political. So my book is an alternative history of travel from my perspective as a woman of color, someone who traveled on a third world passport for years, someone whom the travel industry was not built for. Because travel as we know it today emerges from, the 1850s, a time when colonialism and colonial powers ruled the world. And modern tourism very much has that DNA. So for people like me, travel has always been political, from applying for a visa to, say, a first world country with an Indian passport, to looking at what guidebooks center, what kind of travelers guidebooks center, to, in the larger picture, just understanding how tourism is a way in which colonialism reinforces itself around the world.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about what it has meant to travel the world in the skin that you are in. Of course, you detail this quite nicely in your book, Airplane Mode, An Irreverent History of Travel. I should mention that book is available in paperback on December 3rd this year. So a great Christmas gift for those who love travel and stories about travel. The book has done quite well. You don't come out in paperback if you haven't done well in hardcover. And so Airplane Mode did quite well. Once again, it's called Airplane Mode, An Irreverent History of Travel, available December 3rd in paperback. But to your point about what it means to travel the world in the skin that you are in, tell me more.
Yeah. So yes, the book goes into a lot of detail about this from, many different vantage points.
Mhm.
And, part of the hard work of writing a book that was a subversive history of tourism was that there was so much to write about. So I started the book, I suppose I could say that I probably started thinking about these things possibly in some standing outside the U.S. consulate in some long visa line or the other in India. An experience that many people around the world have. If you want to just apply for a tourist visa, the number of documents and the number of, the long wait for an interview slot at a consulate, the statements you have to, the documents you have to provide, from bank statements to invitation letters from institutions abroad. So from something as simple as a visa application to travel, you can see how colonialism and colonial geopolitics pervades the world of travel. But as I started thinking more and more about travel, and now I have a U.S. passport. I travel as a U.S. citizen. I live in New York. I travel with U.S. dollars. So for me, it was so interesting to see the shift as well, right? From coming, and I use the phrase third world very deliberately. So coming from the third world as a third world citizen to now being somebody who lives in the United States and travels on a U.S. passport, for me, the shift is enormous. But we never talk about this in the world of travel. If you look at travel magazines, if you look at travel books, they rarely acknowledge all the privileges that accrue to, your standard issue white backpacker who is taking a year to travel around the world versus somebody who has to, spend months preparing a visa application just for a tourist visa to Europe or the United States.
Yeah. Her book is, as she mentioned, a subversive history of tourism. The only book of its kind, to my knowledge. Again, it's called Airplane Mode, An Irreverent History of Travel, available in paperback on December 3rd. When we come forward, though, I am anxious to ask Shanaz Habib about that difference that she noted a moment ago. She mentioned it real swiftly and went on past it, but I want to unpack that or give her a chance to unpack it. I am curious. I've only had one passport in my life, an American passport. But what is it like, speaking of a subversive history of tourism, what is it like, imagine what it's like to travel the world with a passport, and she's a woman of color, and now she has a U.S. passport. But what was it like then on an Indian passport moving around the world versus what it's like now with an American passport moving around the world? I'm curious about that. We'll delve into that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
So you may have heard of Project 2025, a plan crafted by Trump and his MAGA loyalists to give Trump virtually unchecked political power and take Black America backwards. Here's how. Project 2025 strips away our voting rights protections, and it eliminates the Department of Education. It would siphon public school funding to private schools, leaving our kids behind. Planning on going to college? Good luck paying for it. Project 2025 cuts funding for federal student loans. Trump's Project 2025 would also make states monitor women's pregnancies, and it bans abortion. Project 2025 would also gut Obamacare, ripping away health care from millions. Simply put, Trump's Project 2025 would be devastating to Black America. But we can stop it by voting for Kamala Harris for president, because we are not going back.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for president.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide cleans better than the leading competitive free detergent, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
Plus, Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
We're thrilled to announce that the Dear Future Wifey podcast is now available on the Urban One Podcast Network. This show, hosted by Latiris R. Whitfield, explores the journey of discovering and rediscovering love and relationships. With over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, Dear Future Wifey has become a prototype for discussions about love and relationships. Learn how to rediscover love, heal, and have faith in relationships. Go to urbanonepodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Shahnaaz Habib, tell me more about what you learned, what the distinction or difference was between all those years traveling as a woman of color on an Indian passport and now traveling the world on a U.S. passport.
Sure, yes, absolutely. In fact, one of the chapters in my book is about this attempt to travel to Paris. Just as I had applied for my green card, I was still on my Indian passport, and I had, my husband and I decided that we would just go to Paris. We were expecting a baby, and we thought one last hurrah before the baby comes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a favor, he offered to do all the work for my visa application. My husband is a U.S. citizen, and he had no idea what he was letting himself in for when he made this offer.
Mm-hmm.
And then he looked at the list of documents, which I reproduced in my book, because until then, I had no idea that white Americans did not understand what people like me went through. So I needed not just a valid passport, I needed an ID photograph, that not just any old photograph. It had to show your ears, proof of my legal status in the USA, pre-booked round-trip ticket, travel health, insurance, proof of accommodation, bank statements, letter from my employer. And of course, there's also a visa application fee, right? Whereas he needed nothing but a passport. He could just walk into France with just his passport.
Wow.
So that is one small example of the kind of paperwork, bureaucracy. And there's this wonderful phrase I love for times like this. It's a time tax. People from the third world pay not just like the application fee and the financial burden, but also an enormous time tax in having to prove themselves to be legitimate tourists, legitimate travelers. I also was really surprised to read about this one time when Amartya Sen, the world famous Nobel Prize winning economist, when he traveled to the Davos Institute, and he had to, he arrived in Switzerland for his conference.
Mm-hmm.
And because he did not have a visa, because it was a very quick invitation, the Swiss immigration authorities would not let him in at first. He had to be questioned. They questioned him about why he was coming to their country. So this is another way in which the passportism plays out. Not only do people from the third world traveling on third world passports need visas for the countries they're traveling to, they even need transit visas, right? For even passing through a country. If you're like making a layover in a country, very often you need transit visas. So just to give you these examples to show how so much of the time passportism seems like a very innocent kind of discrimination, but it actually plays out in terms of geopolitics, because obviously the people who have to pay the time tax and people who have to apply for visas always tend to be from countries that are colonized, countries that are poorer in the current economic system.
Yeah, we are talking about traveling in the midst of colonialism and capitalism and climate change, and at the moment, world disorder. Shanaz Habib is our guest. Her book comes out in paperback in December. It's called Airplane Mode: An Irreverent History of Travel. When we come forward in our remaining moments with her, I was just talking to Miles, my board op. He just took his first international trip not too long ago. He chose the right place, went to Africa. To a couple countries, 2 or 3 countries, I recall, in Africa, on his very first trip outside of the country. And so I was celebrating his getting out and going to Africa. I've done that many times, of course, myself. Over the course of my career, and I was telling him about my very first time to Africa, and I was fortunate to go with Maya Angelou. So it was just an amazing moment that I'll never forget. But we were talking a moment ago, and I want to ask Shanaz about this when we come forward, about whether or not I am right about the fact. I think I am. I'm curious as to her take on this. My belief is that no other country gets you more quickly into a conversation about politics than having a U.S. passport. So on the one hand, we are privileged in ways that we cannot imagine as we travel around the world, even with all this drama going on in the world. We are privileged in so many ways, as you just heard her lay out. But the flip side of that, because it does cut both ways, is that when I meet people from around the world, my first question isn't about their politics. But when you're from the U.S. of A., I don't think being from any other country gets you more quickly into political conversations than being from the United States of America. We'll talk about that in our remaining moments when we come forward with our guest, and then we'll do our tribute to Jimmy Carter, 100 years old today, in our third and final hour. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Shanaz Habib, you heard my assessment moments ago. I've got 2 minutes left in this conversation with you. My view is that no country of origin will get you more quickly into a political discourse, dialogue, debate than being from the U.S. of A. Agree or disagree?
I think that is probably a testament to the kind of traveler that you are, Tavis, rather than to your passport.
Okay.
I wonder if you're more open to political conversations, you're more open to conversations in general with the people in places you travel to. And, you know, the fact is American geopolitics, America is a huge empire. It influences the lives of so many people around the world. People are curious. People want to know. And I think it's really wonderful that you get into those political conversations because it says more about the kind of traveler that you are.
Yeah. No, I receive that. And yet I think that when you travel the world during certain periods of time, you get hit with those questions whether you're Tavis Smiley or not. If you're traveling during the Trump era, you're going to get asked about, are you guys really going to reelect Donald Trump? You're going to get asked about Trump during the Bush years, whether you're Tavis or not. You're going to get asked about George Bush. So
100%.
Yeah. That's my only point. I just think that our politics, just to your point, people are curious about America, but
Yeah, I mean, an American president has so much influence on the lives of people around the world.
That's right.
Unfortunately, that is the situation. That is the world we live in today. So, yes, to your larger point, I agree.
Nope, I received that, and I thank you for it. The book is called Airplane Mode, An Irreverent History of Travel, an amazing book that did quite well, as I said, in hardcover. It comes out in paperback. I've written a few of these, and so it's always a blessing to have done well enough in hardcover that they want to put it out in paperback. It comes out December the 3rd this year. Great holiday gift. Again, Airplane Mode, An Irreverent History of Travel. The author of that book, Shanaz Habib, has been our guest in this hour. Good to have you on. Congrats on the paperback, and have a great rest of the day. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your insightful questions.
It's been my great honor to have you on this program. When we come forward in our remaining and final hour today, we will celebrate the life and legacy of one Jimmy Carter. 100 years ago today, he was born, which now makes him not just the longest living American president ever, but the first American president to ever achieve a centennial birthday. And so I've dug into the vault, and I'm going to bring you some of my conversation with Jimmy Carter celebrating his 100th NATO Day when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Western North Carolina and East Tennessee are reeling from the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Officials in Tennessee say more than 100 people remain unaccounted for. Asheville, North Carolina is reporting at least 40 people were killed, with the overall toll now around 130 across the southeast. The vice presidential candidates will be in the spotlight tonight. There will be no audience when Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance take to the debate stage beginning at 9 p.m. That's Eastern Time. CBS News anchor Norah O'Donnell and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan will be the moderators. New York City